is because I believe that Black people should stand in solidarity with and defend these immigrant communities on this issue right now out of pure selfish reasons, period. Okay? I am an empath, I tend to care, but I'm also extremely strategic in the way in which I move. I'm saying that because this is simply a drill, this is a movement drill, this is a humanity drill for how society will react when it comes to us. I don't know what your feed currently has. I don't know what you see on your TikTok. I don't know what you see on your Instagram or on your threads. But for me, personally, my thread has been filled with the catastrophe that this nation has become in the past few months. All I see every time I log on to TikTok or Instagram, all I see is families being split into pieces, the extreme emotional heartache of people being stripped away from family members that they love. I'm seeing the havoc that is caused in communities by this violent insertion of the government into people's lives. I'm seeing communities in pain. Right? That's what I'm being fed every day. What I'm also being fed every day is this discourse that people are having about whether or not people of color, and specifically Black people, should engage in being supportive through your communication efforts, through protests, and through whatever other mediums. Should Black people be engaged in defending immigrant communities? Of course, there's so many Black communities that are also immigrant communities. Right? Like, I am a product of immigration. Like a lot of Black people come from the Caribbean and a lot of Black people come from Africa, right? And so I need to acknowledge that there's a different discourse on this question that happens when you're talking about what kind of Black people you're referring to. Because if you're referring to a Black immigrant or a Black descendant of recent immigrants, then of course they're going to have a different emotional connection to the issue, and they are going to be able to put themselves in the shoes of the people who are being deported. It's going to be easier for them to understand what that process could look like, regardless of whether or not they are documented or undocumented. I do feel like as an immigrant, you can immediately see yourself in those shoes. Here's the reason why I don't even think the question of empathy or emotion or your ability to relate matters here. Here's the reason why. It's because I believe that Black people should stand in solidarity with and defend these immigrant communities on this issue right now out of pure selfish reasons, period. Okay? I am an empath, I tend to care, but I'm also extremely strategic in the way in which I move. How do our reactions today impact our future tomorrow? And I'm not talking about it in terms of would we be on the morally righteous side of history. Black people have, in the history that we know, the history that I know, Black people have very well often, almost always, been on the right side of history, right? I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the very near future. We need to think about us in the very near future, and we need to defend these people now, today, to protect ourselves in the very near future. Let me explain why. This is simply a drill for how society will react when it comes to us. When I'm seeing this video of ICE violently, very violently, and almost in a hateful manner, separating these people from their families with no emotional care at all. Like, you can almost see behind the eyes of some of these officers, for the ones who are courageous enough to show their eyes, you don't see any emotion. Right? And for me, in some of these clips, for the ICE officers and for the immigration officers that you can see, the people who they're being violent toward look almost exactly like them. Do they not? Because maybe you can squint really closely to see the differences, but in the most part, this immigrant communities, this Latino communities that are being deported, very similar looking to white people. They just have a different accent. Maybe I'm talking as a Black person, as an outsider, but these your cousins. These could have been your siblings. You're a couple of generations removed in terms of immigration status from being them. They're not that different from you. And so the question I pose myself always when looking at these clips is, if an ICE officer, an immigration officer is capable, if a government officer, a supporter of Trump or whatever, is capable of being this heartless with someone who looks like they could have been your cousin, with someone who looks exactly like them with just a different accent, what level of violence would they be capable of inflicting to someone with my skin tone, someone as dark as me? And so when I'm saying the reason we should be openly supportive and openly in defense of these communities now, I'm saying that because this is simply a drill, this is a movement drill, this is a humanity drill for how society will react when it comes to us, because it's going to come to us. We are always, Black people, brown people, this skin tone is always the final target. Don't get it twisted, it's always the final target. This is nothing but a drill for the final target, who is likely you. And so you need to treat this like a drill. They're treating this like an experiment. You as well should treat this like an experiment. The way the world, the way our community reacts to these heartless acts, to these violent acts, will determine the level of humanity that is left when it gets to us. At some point, they will find an issue, as they always have in American history, find an issue that is specifically meant to target Black communities. They will find an issue, usually related to crime or drugs. You know, it doesn't, whatever the issue, they will pick the issue, they will find the issue, and they would use the issue to specifically perpetrate violence toward Black people. That time will come, I have no doubt about it. And so the question we have to ask ourselves now is, what level of humanity will be left in the world for when that level of violence, which would probably be multiplied by 10, because, you know, if they're capable of doing this with your cousins who look like them and just have different accent, just think about what they're capable of doing to you. When they get to that level of violence multiplied by 10 doing to apply to us, what level of humanity would be left in the world? As the more we reduce the standard of humanity applied to someone who isn't Black in this country and in the world in the 21st century, the lower the level of humanity that is afforded to Black people. And it's not a matter of whether or not we want to accept it or not. It's just a matter of this majority non-Black world and the way it looks at Black skin. The level of humanity that is afforded to us is always 10 times lower than the level of humanity they are willing to afford to any other brown person or brown looking person, because these people to me have the same skin tone, different accents. And so what I'm really saying is raise the bar for what humanity would accept. Defending these people right now on which violence is being perpetrated today is maintaining a baseline level of humanity that should be afforded to everyone. The more you reduce that baseline level that is afforded to them, the more in the pits the baseline level of humanity that will be afforded to us. And if you don't see that, just think about this as a drill for what is to come for us. And so what tactics of communication, of demonstration, of allyship can we learn from this experience that we can apply when they're ready to go at their final target, which would always be us. That's all for me today. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.